Hello, Soul-u-tions, and welcome to today's episode of the Soul-u-tions Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about how to kindly communicate what you want and what you don't want. This is a big topic. You are going to want to listen to the entire episode. So, take a listen to the intro and the theme music, and I'll see you on the other side.
Einstein said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." Most everyone in the world is solving their problems the wrong way. Our problems come from our thinking, and we can solve them with our thinking. So, whether you're at your lowest, just trying to grow, or whether you are trying to sustain growth over your lifetime, join us as we push the boundaries of our current thinking and redefine how we find solutions.
The hope and the strength and the love and the smiles and the laughter of friends and family. Add it up, you'll find no limit to the possibilities.
I chose today's topic because I have really been struggling with how to ask for the things that I want from my husband or from my children. And when I say ask for the things, I'm really meaning the help that I need in life, things around the house or things in connection with our family. And here's the thing. I am 57 years old. I am an educated woman. As my children will tell you, I was the salutatorian of my high school class. I went to a great college. I got a fantastic law degree from the University of Georgia. Practiced law at a really big southeastern law firm in Atlanta. Came back home, practiced law here. You know, been through the trenches of childhood cancer, co-founded a pediatric cancer research fund, left the practice of law and my partnership to start a life coaching business. And in the meantime, have helped to co-parent and raise 3 children, participate in a lot of decisions in connection with my parents' health as they have aged, and navigated marriage. All of that litany of life experience and education to say, isn't it amazing that at the age of 57, even with, a really accomplished resume, I still have trouble asking for assistance with the invisible labor, the mental and emotional, quote unquote, load, as is discussed in the literature these days. I still struggle with communicating the things that I notice that need to be done and the things that I take care of for a household of 5 that nobody else notices and that nobody else sees. Now, I'm going to put this disclaimer in here because whether you are a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. Like, this is not a hit on, well, women do all the work and men don't. No. This is a podcast addressing the challenges we face in communicating with one another, communicating our needs, communicating our desires, communicating the things that we do, and communicating when we are overwhelmed and overloaded with the things that we do. And so this truly is a communication issue for everyone. So if you are a man listening to this podcast, I want to give you these instructions. It's going to be different for the men and the women. Okay. I just want you to listen and listen to a woman who is not your wife or your mother or your girlfriend or your coworker. Listen to a woman who is none of those roles in your life, and just listen to her like you would if you were in a classroom and there was a guest lecturer there, just describing her experience with the challenge of communicating and asking for help without sounding like a nag, and the socialization and the messaging that she has received that is in her unconscious and subconscious brain that muddies the waters of communicating clearly and effectively on these points. I also want the women who are listening to this podcast, I want you to listen to me as a woman sharing that this is a communication challenge that you have, that I know that it feels like you are underwater right now, or at times in your life that you are carrying a disproportionate share of the burden. I know that you wish that, quote unquote, he, your husband, or your children would be able to understand what it is that you are carrying and that you are doing, and how it's crushing you, how the load, that invisible mental and emotional load that you are carrying is absolutely crushing you. And I want you to equally understand that the reason no one else in your household understands the load that you are carrying is because it truly is invisible to them. While the guys, I want you to focus on this being a communication skill set that your wife never learned how to use, or just wasn't taught to develop it in a certain way. From the woman's perspective, I want you to see this as a language issue. And when I mean language, I mean like you speak English and they speak French, like a foreign language issue. The load that you are carrying is truly invisible to the other people in your household until you learn how to make it visible, which means that you're going to have to learn how to speak French so that you can communicate to them what it is that needs to be done in the house, how to redistribute the burden of the labor here. As long as you're speaking English and they're speaking French, frustrations are just going to continue to build. And as long as you just keep hoping that they are going to take it upon themselves to learn English, frustrations are going to continue to mount. Think of it this way. If you go to visit a foreign country, you take it upon yourself to learn a few key phrases so that you can get around in that country with a greater sense of ease. And also, if you have ever traveled to a foreign country, and the mere fact that as an American, you have taken the time to learn the language of that other country, I want you to think about how that feels to the people in that other country, how that feels to be on the receiving end of someone who has cared enough to learn a few key phrases to take the lead in this. Okay, so there's kind of the framework. And now you can both just listen to me and you will both take away what you need, whether you're a man or you're a woman. I don't have to keep going through that. Because one's looking at it from a communication, one's looking at it from a language. And you can now also see that you both have two totally different perspectives that need to be addressed in the area. Okay, first of all, the language that we are using, ladies, of, "Oh, could you just please do me a favor? I really need you to do me a favor. I would just so appreciate it if you could help me here." That language is not helping you communicate to your husband that this is not just your burden to carry, right? When you're using that language, you are speaking from the position that they are doing you a favor. You are asking them to help you with what is presumably your work. Instead of asking for help and asking for favors, I want you to think about this language. And I've got to really give credit to an amazing therapist turned life coach, Sam Kelly. You can find her on Instagram at @samkelly_world. And she's a former therapist turned life coach. She's also been trained and certified at the Life Coach School, which is my home life coaching school. It feels weird. It's like my home faith tradition, my home life coaching school tradition. It's also the place where I was trained. So we use the same framework and methodology that you've heard me talk about here, which is that your circumstances are neutral and that it's your thoughts about your circumstances that are creating the feelings that you have. And it's those feelings that you have that are driving the type of action that you're taking. And that's determines whether you're taking useful action or not so useful action. And so when you're thinking about, like, "Oh, it's my job to communicate this to him." No. But when you think about like, "Oh my goodness, I have been socialized to believe that I can," are you ready for it? "Bring home the bacon, fry it up in the pan, and never, ever, ever let him forget that he is a man because I'm a woman." Like, you've been socialized to believe that women have to do it all, that women want to do it all. And so you have been doing it all. The guys, on the other hand, are not socialized at all about the doing it all. Guys are like, go out there, support your family for the most part. Now, listen, if the roles are reversed, you know how to navigate this conversation. You're still having this conversation in your home on some level because you have all been like raised in the same water, so to speak, right? Like this is the societal water that we all swim in, this type of messaging and socialization that we don't even realize is there, that we see and hear when we're kids and we're just sponges and we're just absorbing it all. And we don't have a fully developed brain to say, wait a second, I'm supposed to bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan, and never let you forget that you're a man. Like, this is a desire that I am supposed to have as a woman. When I heard that commercial for Angelique perfume, I was like 12, 13 or something, far from having a fully developed brain. So I'm receiving this messaging like, this is what you want to be when you grow up. This is the woman. This is what being a quote unquote real woman is. And guys saw that messaging too. They're like, oh, that's a real woman. I want one of those when I grow up. But I think that we desperately underappreciate the impact of the messaging that we received as kids and teenagers with undeveloped brains that never ever thought to question these things. And so while I'm 57 years old and still navigating this issue and this conversation and trying and failing, as I share with y'all what the evaluation is, what's working, what's not, what I can do differently. I'm still living in the practice of that evaluation on the topic of this invisible load. And I'm not the only one that's still living in it. You are too. And I know that because of the New York Times articles that come out, the articles that come out in the Huffington Post, and the articles that come out in Forbes and in Time magazine. Like, this is a hot topic issue of the day and age that we're living in right now. Lots of people are trying to figure it out. And I mentioned in my previous podcast with y'all most recently about this great book that Elise Lohan, who is the former chief marketing officer at Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow's wellness empire, that she's written this book called On Our Best Behavior, How Goodness is Killing Women Today. Like, when I say that you are like dying under the pressure of doing it all, I know that you're dying under the pressure of trying to do it all. And I was going to hold on one second. I'm going to pull this book up on my phone. Yes. The 7 Deadly Sins and the Price Women Pay to Be Good. So if we just kind of looked at this issue from a different perspective and say, how did we get to the point that we're where we are right now, where women are truly like dying under this pressure to be good at all the things? And men aren't. And the reason men aren't is because they were never fed they were never fed the messaging that what it meant to be a man was to want it all. Like, that doesn't even come into the conversation. When I'm talking to Turner, when I'm talking to my kids, like when I'm talking to my brothers or my friends, my clients who are men, like, that doesn't ever like enter their minds that, oh, I'm supposed to want it all. It's a much different dynamic that you've been given, gentlemen, and you have been equally harmed by this messaging. I mean, when you receive the messaging that it's a woman's job to make you feel like a man, like that's such a disempowering message. My heart hurts for my sons and my husband and my friends. Like my heart hurts for you because like, can you imagine that you're 13 years old and you're hearing that you you could not feel like a man? Like depending upon how your wife acts towards you, you may or may not feel like a man. That's just, I can't believe that, that you ever had to hear that. And similarly, I can't believe that women ever had to hear that they had to be more than who they are naturally and that they had to do it all. And the problem is that it all, and I put that in quotes, is never defined for us other than everything under the sun. Like for a woman to feel good about herself, you have to do everything and you have to do it at a certain level. And so, of course, you're being crushed right now because the world is faster, it's bigger, it is, there's so much more that we are responsible for now. There's so much more that we have to worry about now. The stakes are higher. And so, of course, you're feeling crushed. Okay. So, what can we do about this? What is, as we say here on the Solutions Podcast, the Soul-u-tion, the SOUL, Lucian? And I think it's this. I think that it's women taking a leadership role in your life to take some time for yourself and say, I don't want it all. Like, that's just the weirdest proposition ever in the history of humanity to think that. Like, that's such a crazy amount of pressure to put on someone to say that, oh, yeah, you have to do it all in order to feel like a complete woman. And come back to this soul of you. Like this soul that you have within you is whole and complete. Like you are whole and complete because you are precious gift from this beautiful energy of love. And you've been given a soul that is whole and complete. And no all is needed to add to that. So if we just kind of come back here and say, actually, I am already a whole and complete human being. I am a woman. And as such, I get to decide what it is that I want, what it is that I want to do. I don't have to take some pre-designed checklist of all and wait until I check everything else off of the all in order to feel good about myself. Now, that's step one, coming back to this beautiful soul shine light that's within you. Taking a deep breath. Number two, now that I know that I've received certain messaging about doing it all, and that is something that I've been told that I would want to have. Now that I realize that I've received that messaging, I can begin to kind of also ask what other messaging have I received. And what you have received is a training that you didn't even know was going on in your life. You were a little girl, and just because you were a little girl, you were trained to notice things. You were trained to notice the needs of others. And you were trained to do your best to anticipate the needs of others. And it's so just like incredibly simple how it happens. My mother and father, they love to entertain. My mom is to this day a masterful entertainer. And so part of entertaining in our house was like they always had people at our house. And so we were given jobs. I was given a job. My sister was given a job. And then my brothers were given totally different jobs. And our jobs were to notice if the guests needed anything, if the guests needed a refill of whatever it was they were drinking, like say it was iced tea or water. Our job was to notice when the glass was half full or less. Like we were just straight up to like, be a good helper. You could help mommy out a lot. Like be a good hostess and just notice if anybody needs something. Notice if there is an empty glass left on the chest and bring it back to the kitchen. Notice if there's an empty plate, bring it back to the kitchen. Notice if anybody needs help doing anything. And so from a very early age, you are socialized and conditioned to anticipate others' needs. You do that and you get really good at it. Like think of it as a skill. Noticing what needs to be done is a skill set. And you started apprenticing this skill set. I mean, I probably was 5 or 6 when I first started to be apprenticed. And the dark arts of noticing. No, I'm saying the dark arts because here at Get Up Productions, they were playing Harry Potter when I arrived. But it is like that. It's like a dark art of noticing other people's needs, and you are masterful at it. It's just now there are more needs on a regular basis. It's not just, a party that your parents are given for the holidays that comes around, 4 or 5 times a year. It's 24/7 in your home. And like there are 5 of us in my home, 3 sons and a husband. And I realized I never thought to train my sons in the art of noticing other people's needs in the way that I was trained. And how about that? 57, consider myself a feminist, and just really dawning on me that I never trained them to be a helper to me in that regard or to help themselves in that regard. Because if I was trained to notice other people's needs, that as an adult, I now know, as Byron Katie says, there are 3 people's businesses. There's my business, there's the other person's business, and there's God's business. And when my kids were young, and when you do have kids or someone who needs some extra help, as a mother and as a parent, you are anticipating their every needs. Not only have you been socialized to do that, but from an evolutionary perspective, your children don't have fully developed brains and they're using your brain. They're depending upon your brain. And so you really can anticipate their needs. But at some point, there comes a time where it's appropriate for your kids to begin to start noticing their needs and to begin to notice the needs of the household. And so, like, if I was taught to begin to notice other people's needs at the age of 5 or 6 as the oldest child in a household, then I think that you could begin to teach your kids to notice things at a very young age. And this is why I love Sam Kelly's work, because she truly is the needs that she's teaching. She's teaching parents how to teach young kids how to notice the needs of the household, the needs for doing the dishes, the needs for making beds, the needs for doing laundry. I think she calls these like the top 3 needs. And she says that she teaches her kids the same skill set that my mom taught me when I was little, which is just to notice when things need to be done around the house. And what she's also giving her kids is a sense of agency over their ability to notice when something needs to be done and then the ability to do something about it. And so I really got to thinking about this work that she's doing, and fast forwarding to myself at the age of 57 and watching so many of my clients like struggle with being crushed under trying to fulfill everyone's needs. And I'm like, I think this is a solution to share with y'all. And beginning to, instead of, and this is the simplest way I can think to do it. And this goes back to communicating and language. If you just stopped saying, could you please help me with, or would you mind doing me a favor? If we took those 2 sentences out of our language and out of our communication with our husbands and replaced those sentences with, hey, I noticed that the dishwasher needs to be unloaded. Hey, I noticed that we're out of laundry detergent. Hey, I noticed that, fill in the blank. This is so different than what is being proposed as the best method, in which obviously is failing because couples are in marriage counseling about this, of the woman making a list of the things that she needs her husband to do, and that the complaint around this is that it still puts the burden on the woman to carry the mental and emotional load. And Sam Kelly addresses this in the world of kids, like it's like making a chore chart. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Chore chart. I have to see those 2 words spelled out in my brain. Yes. Parents make chore charts for their kids, and then kids, have to do the chores, and the parents have to keep up with the chores that are done. And that's basically the best advice that is being circulated for couples. For, well, wives, you just have to give your husband a list. Husbands, you need to do the things on the list. But that does still, it's like the chore chart. It still places the burden on the parent to create the chart, to put the chart up, to keep up with the chart, right? And it's such a subtle distinction that Sam has come up with. It's like, no. Ditch the chore chart and just notice and do. Notice and do. Teach your kids the skill set of noticing what needs to be done and doing it. And then if it doesn't get done, this is such a brilliant follow-up. Just like, oh, hey, I noticed that you started that thing, right? I noticed that you started the laundry. And that it still needs to be completed, right? I also noticed that it needs to be completed. And just kind of nudging them to complete the circle of the thing. And then they'll go like, oh, yeah, you're right. I got distracted. I noticed you must have gotten distracted in that thing. But if you prompt them for a while, you will then be able to say, I noticed that got completed. Well done, right? You're communicating differently with your spouse. You're no longer like, you're not a nag. These are things that belong to the entire household. These are things that you do. And it's invisible because no one has ever taught him how to notice what needs to be done. And so when you begin to invest the time to teach the person you have, committed yourself to living the rest of your life with, and let's just say it takes a year of your marriage to train them on using this skill set of noticing. After that year, you don't ever have to do it again. There's no more lists that you need to do. You can have conversations with one another with the things that you both notice need to be done. And you will see how through the episode here, we've walked away from this idea of you doing it all. We've totally debunked that is something that we want. We've got to let go of wanting to do it all, of thinking that doing it all is something we're supposed to want as a woman. Like, really see how that belief system, that you're really being crushed by it. And just coming back to the table and learning to help teach someone else how to notice things. And you can do it in such a playful way. I mean, I am a very playful person in my marriage. I find that that's something that I just enjoy, being playful. And so at the noticing game, I can think of so many ways to be playful. Sam talks about it with the kids. Like, she'll say, I have my noticing goggles on. And, it's just kind of funny with our spouses. We could just say, got my noticing goggles on. And I want to just really encourage you that this could be the one shift in perspective that you have been waiting for in connection with this issue of the invisible load, of this issue of being able to kindly communicate what you want, what you need, what you don't want, and what you don't need with someone else. Hey, I noticed that. I really want more of this. Hey, I noticed that. I don't like doing X, and yet it still needs to be done. Hey, I noticed that this need is here, and can you notice that? Like, teach someone how to notice that. Do you see that? Do you notice that too? And they might go, no, I don't notice that. And you're going like, okay, tell me what you do notice. Hey, what do you notice? And then we just get a conversation going. And now you're working with each other as teammates in noticing what the invisible labor is that needs to be done and working on a solution that works for y'all together. And it takes away, just like it takes the chore chart away from the mom of young parents, it takes the list making away from the wife in a marriage. Well, I think I went a little overtime on that one. But it's a continuing conversation. And I would love to hear your thoughts about it. So just FYI, you can continue this conversation with me by leaving a comment on this podcast and just telling me the things that you notice and the things that you don't notice about it. And the other thing where I am continuing this conversation is with my email list and my email subscribers and on social media. So make sure that you have gone to Tara Simkins, TaraSimkins, no P.com, and that you're on my email list, because that will give you like the perfect platform to be able to like receive these notices of the new podcasts, notices of emails. And the great thing about it is you can always hit reply to one of my emails and ask me a question. You have access to me. You can go deeper with you on something. You can say, hey, Tara, I listened to that podcast and here are my follow-up questions on that. I would love to hear them. And the other place you can go to is Instagram at Soul-u-tions Labs and follow me there. And you can always drop a message in my DMs there too. So I'm super easy to reach, and I'm really, really interested in this conversation because truly one of my missions in life is to like relieve you of this unnecessary, soul-crushing, invisible mental and emotional load that you are carrying around. It is killing you. It is damaging your marriage. It is unfair. It is nothing that you asked for. And it is something that that there's a solution for. And we're just going to keep working at it until we get the workable solution for you. So I promise not to stop. I won't stop until you have a workable solution for you on this subject matter. So make sure you're on my email list and you're following me on social media, because both of those give you direct access to hit reply or send me a DM and ask me to go deeper. Tell me what is working for you on this and what isn't working for you on this. And then I'll come back and I'll put it on a podcast and I'll reply to you. So, because this is how we break cycles. And I know that everyone, all the guys and all the gals here are cycle breakers. Like we are, who better than us? We've all heard the call to make this a kinder, gentler world for us to live in and for our children to live in, and so that we can thrive and that we can fulfill our life's purpose of shining the light that we have within out into the world, like giving the gifts that we were born to give back into the world. And as long as you are being crushed by the invisible mental and emotional load that you are disproportionately carrying, then you can't fulfill that. You can't fulfill that purpose. And that just is unacceptable to me. You deserve better than that. All right, my friends, enjoy the music. I'm wrapping up my end of it, but one of my favorite things to do after I listen to my podcast is to just truly listen to that theme song about possibilities that my husband and co-wrote with a dear friend, and that Darius Rucker sang with his band for St. Jude. And I do believe in possibilities. And dadgummit, if we can find cures for childhood cancer, we can definitely find cures for this this soul-crushing, disproportionate burden that women are carrying in connection with this invisible mental and emotional loads. So until next time, bye, friend.
'Cause I ain't done living the life I'm meant to lead, and I ain't done loving the ones who cared for me. The hope and the strength and the love and the smiles and the laughter of friends and family added up. you'll find no limit to the possibilities. The left and the right, and some faith in the fight, and your courage is all.